Hello students, today I am coming to you from my workroom, which should give you some indication of why I am called the mess maker. Today we are going to learn how to do a domed frame weight. You should have all gotten a kit in the mail from me. Some of you even got some of the canvases from me. And I'm about to show you what they should include. Or it should include your canvas, Peltex 1, Peltex piece number 2, Shape Flex, muslin, cardstock, and flex foam, as well as your instructions on how to finish a domed frame weight, 2 bobbins of thread, and 1 needle. In addition to those items from your kit, you should also have an iron, clips like these, a lacis cord maker if you plan on making cord, a skein each of DMC Pearl 5 or other similar sized pearl threads so you can make your cord, your fat quarter, a pencil, or I like to use these friction pins. They erase and they go away with the iron. They're really awesome. Scissors for cutting paper and fabric, your quilt square. Mine is clear. It should have a 90-degree edge on it. No round edges, please. Along with your Teflon sheet, if you choose to use one, and ironing board with some kind of pad on it, extra padding if you can, especially if you plan on doing a 3-dimensional stitching like this one right here. Alright, we're going to go slightly out of order from your directions here, just because I'm redoing this video. We had a little bit of a hiccup while we were in San Diego. One of the cameras didn't pick up all of the recordings, so I am redoing this. So I do have this already cut, but I am also going to use this piece right here to show you how to cut the corners. And that's going to be a little bit different because I've got you ironing things onto this before you cut it. It is okay. Either way you go, it gets the job done. So let me show you how to do this. Alright, so while I've got my iron warming, I've got it on a medium, as you may be able to see right here. And I've got my padding and my Teflon sheet already set. As I said, if you are using something that's a little bit more 3-dimensional, then please put extra padding down like a thick towel and iron on top of that so that you do not flatten out your stitches. I want you to take out your Peltex. This is the one that should be about the size of your canvas. And you're going to take out your Shape Flex. Now this one is your interfacing that has a fabric feel to it. If you notice, both of them will have a bumpy side and a smooth side. I have them cut to the size of your canvas. But what I really want is for you to cut them slightly smaller. So what I am going to do, I'm going to bring my camera down here so you can see. I am going to line up my quilt square right here, and I am going to shave off a 1/4 inch strip. All right. This is coming off of the long side of your Peltex, not the short side. We don't want to mess with the short side because we want it to make contact with your rounded ends. We also want to take off a 1/4 inch from your shape flex. So we're going to take a 1/4 inch off of one side, and then we're going to take a 1/4 inch off of the other. Now that that is done, we can iron this onto your canvas. We want to start with the shape flex first. That protects your canvas from stretching out of whack. So bumpy side goes down onto the back of your stitching. You want to center it. Should have about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. If it is not completely perfect, it is okay. Don't worry about it. Now, in my home state, it is very, very muggy here right now. I don't ever have enough, or I never have a problem with humidity in my house. And so I don't necessarily have to have any steam going in my iron because there's so much steam from the air. We found out while we were in San Diego that they do not have that problem. So if you are in a drier state, then you want to make sure you are adding a bit of steam. You can hear this go. And you just want to press down onto your shape flex to set it. Don't be moving around. You don't need to do that. Just press straight down. That little bit of humidity or steam will help get the glue going and help it adhere to the back of your canvas. You want it to be glued really well down. Okay. Now, we're going to take your Peltex piece and we're going to do the same thing. Now with this one, you want to make sure that the ends of it do not go, the ends of your Peltex do not go over the ends of your canvas. If you notice on mine, it is doing that, so I am going to take my Peltex off and I'm going to shave a little bit off of it so that it can line up with the edges of my piece. You may or may not have a problem with this, depending on how tightly you stitch and whether or not you're using the same canvas I am and stuff like that. The main thing is that you want to center it with a little bit of the stitching on this side and on this side, so as you curve it, as you can see, This is going to move even as you iron it around, okay? So we're going to make sure that it is set in the middle. And I am going to take the iron and press it down on one side. See, it's not really going down yet. I'm going to add a little bit of steam. You may have to do a fair amount of pressing in order to get this to stay down. Once it is adhered on one side, you can flip it around. Make sure it's completely adhered. And then you're going to tip it up. You don't have to do this part, but it does make it a little bit nicer of a curve and gets it to line up towards the end. So you see I'm tipping up with one hand and ironing. And as I come up to the other side of it, I'm going to pick it up from the other side and just press down. If you are concerned about your canvas, or if your iron is dirty, use your Teflon sheet to cover it. This will keep anything from burning. You can get these on Amazon. They usually come in a bundle. They're not that expensive. And as a bonus, once you get finished with them, you can stick them in the bottom of your oven, and they are oven safe and make great crumb catchers. Finished, you should have something like this. Curved and beautiful and a bit stiff. So at this point, we are going to clip our corners. So to clip your corners, you find the bottom thread and you go up one. I'll show you. Go inside and you cut right up to the edge. I really love these scissors, and I'll tell you about them a little bit more whenever I get finished with this corner. Then you turn your canvas 90 degrees. You find that last stitch, you go in one, and you clip to the corner. Now, here's where you take out all the aggression that you have for some people. You know how sometimes you want to pinch someone's head? You're going to take your first finger and your thumb, and you're going to hold it right there on the corner and pinch their head while you pull. You will end up with these threads just sticking out of the edge here. You notice, didn't quite catch that one. That's okay. There we go. You should have 4 pieces sticking out the end there. Those, do not cut those off. Fold those to the back, and you have a clean corner ready for folding. Just like that. We're going to do that on your canvas, on all 4 sides. All right. Now that we've got all of our corners cut, we have folded those little 4 pieces to the back, and we have folded down the long side of your canvas. You should end up with something like this. Now, I want you to take your hand and kind of work the canvas to where it has a nice dome to it. Now you have to slide your hand down the canvas just a little bit. We don't want to do it too much because we don't want to, again, mess with those threads, flatten them out, make them rough. So we try to work it as little as possible, but you also want to make sure that you have a nice, good dome. Once you get that dome going, you're going to take your hand and cup it around your canvas. Now, it should look a bit like this. You want a nice dome to it, and you want it as wide or as narrow as you want. If you want it up like this, you can have it. If you want it way out here, you can have it that way too. Whatever size you want the ends is up to you. Once you get it the way that you want it, you are going to take your quilt square and you are going to take your pen and your directions, and you are going to take a measurement of the bottom from end to end. Mine is 5 inches. And then you want to stand your quilt square up. It's also known as a quilt ruler for those of you who do not do quilting. If you notice, mine is right at 3 inches. So my dome is going to be 3 by 5. I'm going to take that and set it to the side. Now, I want you to pull out your cardstock. Using the measurements that you just took, you're going to mark that on your cardstock piece. There's 5. And this is 3. I am going to cut mine in half using my paper scissors. Alright, now some of the class had a little bit of an issue with the next step. If you've got more of a square, then you should be able to fold this to where you can see that top and fold it around and do an ice cream cone shape. If yours is not so square, then lay it down flat. Find something, whether it's a cup or a bowl, or if you're like me and you have these handy dandy rounds from all sorts of Cricut doing stuff, and use one of these just to get it nice and round and make those nice curves for your piece. We're going to cut that out. Now what I have found is even if you have something beautiful like this, you may still have some problems with it lining up with your dome. That is because we've taken 2 measurements, the side and the top, and so all of this right here is a little bit fudgeable. If you find that your dome is bigger than the dome on your piece, you can shave that off. You can also even shave off the bottom if it's just too tall and you like that curve. Just play with it, and after each time you play with it, hold your piece to the measurements that you had before, which were 5, mine was 5 by 3, so you want this to be 5 inches wide, and keep holding it up there until, and shaving away until you get a good shape for your end dome piece. Alright, after a little bit of shaving, as you can see, I have the piece for the end of my dome. I've set it up there, and now this is the pattern that I'm going to use to cut from my Peltex. Alright, now we're pulling out our second piece of Peltex. Now this is the one that is long, but it's not quite as wide as the other one. I'm going to pull that out, bumpy side down, using your semicircle as your guide. You're going to cut out 2 of these. You can use a rotary cutter like me, or you can mark it with your friction pin and then just cut it out with a regular pair of scissors. Now, before I was telling you about these scissors. I love these things. If you go to Joann or if you go online, these are Gingers, and they are advertised as embroidery scissors. But as we all know, they don't work very well as embroidery scissors because this is a big honker. But it is really, really useful for cutting into corners and cutting all the way to the edge. If you notice, these scissors will cut all the way to that tip. And so they make excellent, excellent scissors for cutting out your canvas. And if you do upholstery, these are also really, really good to have on hand as well. Again, they are Gingers. They are advertised as embroidery scissors, but they are not. So as I was saying, you want to cut out 2 of these pieces. Alright, now that we're done cutting out those pieces, we're going to take it over here to our fabric. We've got our fat quarter opened up all the way. We've ironed it a little bit. I like to make mine nice and smooth if I can. Sometimes you get a little bit of that line going through there. It'll be okay. We're going to lift up our Teflon sheet. We're going to put these at kind of at the edge, but you want room around them. So we're going to have 2 of these. You will not use all of your fat quarter unless you mess up. Now that you have those down, you want to cover it. Make sure the bumpy side is down on your Peltex here. You want it to adhere to your fabric, not the Teflon sheet. Now we're going to do just as we had done before. Add a bit of steam, a bit of pressure, and we are going to make sure that these guys adhere to that cotton fat quarter. As you can see, they are now adhered to the cotton fat quarter. We're going to bring them back over to our cutting area. By the way, I have a self-healing cutting mat under this. I advise you to do the same if you can, because it's just really super helpful. I know that not everybody can afford these, but if you are needlepointing, you probably can. And they don't cost a heck of a lot, so get one. Alright, you want to cut all the way around. So you can see I have this one cut. And I'm going to do the second one all the way around. We're leaving about 1/2 inch. You can leave a little bit more, you can leave a little bit less. That is up to you. It does not have to be exact. The thing about finishing is that the outside needs to look pretty. The inside is okay if it's not super neat. We want to keep it as neat as we can, but we're also learning on this. So yes, you can go through and make sure every part of this is 1/2 inch all the way around, but I would rather you just make sure it's cut out and fold it in and actually get the technique down and then make sure all of your measurements are correct on the next one, than to try to make everything so detailed and perfected that you don't ever finish this thing. Either way, whether you do try to get it perfected or you don't, it's going to look nice. I promise you. So after that gets done, we're going to move it back over to our ironing pad. We're going to start with folding in the corners and hitting it with a little bit of your iron. You can, if you notice on my directions, I also even have my corners clipped. That is just something that I do to get rid of some of the bulk. I would like for you to do it too, but if you miss this step, it will be okay. It just adds a little bit more bulk there if you don't clip those corners. That's part of step one. Here's the second part of step one that you can see in your first figure. Or I should say your second figure. We've got that part down. Now we're going to pleat around. You start at one corner. I'm going to turn it around so it can get to the iron. Start at one corner. When you get to a part where it's coming away from your curve, you're going to take your fingers and pinch and make a pleat. Hit it with an iron. Take your fingers and pinch and make a pleat. Hit it with an iron. If you're afraid of getting the iron up against your fingers, then you can use your scissors to hold it in place while you iron. You need to do this all the way around. You want to make sure that that curve is nice and even all the way around. Last one. There. What you'll end up with is this. Now on the other piece, I had 2 of these going. And they were all nice and pretty when I did them for the class. All right, after you get these done, you should have 2 of these. You're going to set them aside along with your canvas. Now you're going to take out your flex foam. Now this is that thick stuff that's in your This is flex foam. Now this is the thick stuff that's in your kit. You want to lay it down on your cutting mat. You want to, at this point, make sure that you have that measurement of the long side of your stitched piece and the measurement of the long side, the long flat side of your dome. We are going to use those two measurements, which mine were 9 3/4 by 5. We are going to use those two measurements to cut out your flex foam. Again, I like my rotary cutter for this. You may want to use your friction pin and a pair of scissors. It's totally up to you. I just find that I have a rotary cutter and it works really well for this. Be sure to line up well, put your hand down and cut. Right. This is the bottom of your piece. You want to take it back over to your ironing mat. Place your fabric back down on the ironing mat. You'll notice that your flex foam also has one side that is kind of soft and another side that is a little bit scratchy. That scratchiness is the glue, and you want that to go down onto your fat quarter. Again, just like before, leave a bit of space all the way around. We're going to cover it up with our Teflon sheet. I know some people use other things like organza or an ironing cover. I like the Teflon sheet because you can kind of see through it and it protects it up to like 500-600 degrees, something crazy like that. Again, hit it with some steam if you need to. And then press down until it adheres. Alright, once you've got this all folded, alright, once you've got that ironed onto your piece of fabric, you want to cut that out, leaving a 1/2 inch all the way around of your fabric. Then you are going to take this over to your iron, and as you can see, I've already started. You're going to fold over those corners and just tack it down with the iron. Make sure that you're not pulling too hard because we don't want to cut off those corners. We just want to make sure that there is no extra bulk there. Once you've got those done, then you want to fold over the ends. Again, using your scissors if you need to hold this in place, and just tack that all the way around. I like using these clips They help with making sure everything stays secure. So a lot of times I'll just use those clips to hold everything in place while I'm ironing and while I'm waiting to put everything together. It's like having a bunch of little hands to help you. I have no fear of the iron, as you can see, because I have probably burned myself 1,000 times. But you can keep from doing that. And just like in the diagram, it should look about like that. When you're finished with it, now you get to clip. You're going to take this and lay it down just as if this were against the ground. This is going to go on top, and we are going to clip these together. Now, step 1 and step 2 on page 7 of putting this together, they're interchangeable. Sometimes I go on and put it together before clipping the edge. Sometimes I go on and clip the edge and then start putting these together. Either way, you want to make sure that you clip the domed edge. I do about every inch, inch and a half, inch and a quarter, somewhere in there. But I go right up to the stitching. As you can see, I'm going right up to that stitching, but not into your stitching. I am leaving one thread between the tip of my scissors and your stitching. I am just going to cut there just to make sure that it curves. If you want to cut more, if you want to cut more often or less often, you can. Just make sure that the end result is a nice dome. If you've got this solid, then when you go to fold over the edges, it won't make a nice dome. And that's what you're really wanting. So now, once I've got that clipped, I'm going to go to the second side, and I am going to clip this end to end, making sure that I get those little corner pieces folded in. And I'm going to kind of wrangle it in place. Sometimes it can get a little bit finicky, but we're going to do the best we can. If you've got a little bit of white there, as you can see I have, if you can, work it over with your fingernails, but don't worry about it a great deal. Just do the best you can, because as you go and stitch this together, that cotton will come over and cover a lot of that edge. And then your cording will do the rest. So I have done both ends and the center, and now I'm just making sure that the rest of it is all nice and clipped. I also like to make sure that the dome part is over the stitching, so it is coming into contact with the stitching the least amount. If you find out that as you remove your clips, they have left a little indentation on the back, that is okay. It will go away. Alright, so this is what I've got, And now we're going to stitch it in place. We're going to use an overcast or whip stitch, and we are going to use our clear bobbin of fishing line. Now, in your kit, this is what it looks like. It's got that, it should have a rubber band around it. You can kind of see. I've got the rubber band around it because it is a little bit finicky and fiddly, and it will come out. If you're buying this for more projects, this is what you want. Zebco Omniflex, make sure you get the 4-pound test. This is different than Fireline for you beaters. It is a little bit thicker. It does not like beating needles very much, and it has a little bit of a stretch to it. Fireline does not. You definitely want the Omniflex. Using this, we are going to pull off about 18 inches. You can do a little bit more, a little bit less. It really doesn't matter. Unlike invisible thread, this is not going to knot nearly as quickly. All right, so now we have our Omniflex and our needle. I know you're having a hard time seeing this. I'm trying to get it to focus in on it. As you can see, you've got your needle eye there. We're going to slip your thread in through the eye. Go through once. We're going to take the end and go right back through that same eye, coming the same way in as you went out. What you're going to end up with is a loop that you are then going to open up a little bit, so you can see. Hopefully you can see. All right. Kind of good enough now. Once you've got that loop, you're going to put the needle all the way through it and hold it into place. Now you can see you've got a little bit of a slip knot here. Now at the opposite end of this, you are going to do what's called a quilter's knot. For some of you, you wet your finger and you wrap this around your finger and then just roll it until it makes a knot. You can do it that way, but what I find works better with this kind of thread is to do an actual quilter's knot. So for a quilter's knot, you need to have your needle on one side and the end of your thread on the other. And we're going to do an I Dream of Jeannie kind of thing with this. You know, Jeannie always did the hands right like this before she made her wishes come true. We want to do that same thing with your needle and the end of your thread. We are going to overlap them just like Jeannie's arms. Now you should be able to see where I am holding the end of the thread right up against the eye of my needle. I know it's a little bit fuzzy. This is the best I can get. I'm really sorry, folks. But then you're going to take the rest of your thread, trying not to make any knots or get the rest of it in play here. But we're going to take the rest of that end and we are going to wrap it around your needle. I do it about 5 or 6 times. See? As it comes into focus and goes out of focus. There we go. You see there's a coil there. You're going to tip your needle up Sorry for the manicure, guys. Been a little bit busy. I'm going to tip this up. You're going to hold on to that coil and you're going to pull your needle while holding on to that coil, and you're going to pull the needle straight up to the ceiling all the way to the end, and you are going to end up with a nice little knot. You can clip off any tail on that knot if you like. It's going to kind of be buried, so we shouldn't have to worry about it too much, but for neatness sake, I just clip mine off. Now we are going to whip stitch or overcast stitch along the edge. Now if you are not doing cording, then you do what's called a ladder stitch. Both of these stitches are on the last page of your directions, but you are going to do a whip stitch or an overcast stitch. Move your clip out of the way. You're going to come behind in the little folded area of your piece, and you're going to bury that knot into your cotton. Then you're going to fold your canvas back over, and what I do is I go behind the piece, behind the stitching, and then up through the stitching. I go behind the stitching and up through the stitching. There we go. I go behind the stitching and up through the stitching. And then it's called a whip because you whip it around. You come through your, just grab a couple of little stitches through your cotton. Then as you notice there's the white thread, go over that white thread, under the stitching, and come up into the stitching and whip around, grab a few more, go over the edge of that last unstitched edge into your stitching, up under the stitching, come in about 2 threads. Let's see if I can get this to there. I come in about 2 threads, and that ensures that as you pull tightly, your cotton will just cover. I know it looks a little puckery, folks, but when you get done, it won't be. There we go. It won't be as you get finished. Let me go on and do this while you do the same. Alright, welcome back. So I have gotten part of this done. Gotten one side finished. The other side, I wanted to show you how to do a ladder stitch. So a ladder stitch is used if you're not planning on using cording. I've already started my needle and thread, and I've already buried the knot, and I've already done 1 stitch, but now I'm going to show you how to do the rest. So what I do is, as you can see, I've got a little bit of thread going over my needle, just like this. I'm going to bring it through. Now notice that my needle was going the same way as the direction that I'm stitching. Now I am going to come back over here right across from where I came out on my fabric, and I am going in underneath the stitching of the edge of my canvas. And I am just going straight like that. I came in right under the edge of the stitching. I come out right under the edge of the stitching, just a little ways down. For this one, it is just the size of that square, that blue square there, but you can make it smaller stitches if you want to. I wouldn't make it any bigger than this, but you're certainly welcome to make it smaller. I then come across, go in through my fabric again, pull the line, and you can see it's starting to take shape over here. I'm going to come in here again, go straight across from where I was. This time I am making smaller stitches. I went in right at the edge of my stitching line, and I come out right at the edge of my stitching line and come right back over here to the cotton and do the same thing. Make a little bit smaller of a stitch. Again, forgive the nails. I haven't had a manicure this week. Go in. And then across. And you just continue this all the way down. When you end your knots over here, you're just going to do a whip stitch, pull the line. Go through just like you would any other sewing, where you do the whip stitch and go through the loop, do another whip stitch, go through the loop, do another whip stitch and go through the loop. I do that 3, sometimes even 4 times, just to make sure that my knots are secure. But I am just going to continue this line, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished.